Okay. I guess it's more than 10 minutes. We can start now. We will go through the questions in the chat at the end, at the next Q&A session. Somehow I can't change it. Okay. Yes, we are starting again with a Slido question. What is mobility as a service, MaaS, is for you? Again, for options including I don't really know. You can again go via slido.com, entering the code. And you can also pick more than one answer as usual. It should be like this. Let's wait for some minutes. I think also the people from the Zoom link who can see the slides can join slido.com. Not only the people here. Okay. Quite high percentage says integrated ticketing solutions for all modes of transport. And also a lot of people said includes private vehicles, which is interesting and nice to see. Okay. I want to start again by talking about why are we talking about MaaS. For those who have participated in the training about CCAM, this might sound a little bit like repeating, but I find it important to understand why we need these technologies and these concepts. I have mentioned before, we have urbanization, rapid urbanization, we have expanding cities and more cars on the roads. We're expecting around 2.5 billion more people by 2050 to live in urban areas. And this would bring environmental and social costs to our society. We will have more people traveling from suburbs to the center and the other way around. And as more people are moving into the cities and the cities are expanding, we have new schools, new hospitals, new places, new houses that people need to travel to and from. So we require, again, as I mentioned in the morning, solutions that address sustainability. And the problem is that also, when we are talking about MaaS, is that we still see, most of us still see car as the most convenient and a reliable solution. And we need to find an alternative for this. And this is where MaaS comes into play. What is MaaS? It is basically an integration of various forms of transport services into a single channel where people can book their trips, view their trips, and book their trips without going into different channels. It includes, in an ideal MaaS environment, it includes various transport services, and it is accessible on demand. It provides you individual solutions. Let's look at the transportation services that can be included in the MaaS environment. It doesn't have to be necessarily public transportation. It can be bike sharing, but it can also be our privately owned car. In an ideal environment, you can see here this nice visualization that clusters transport services into public access and private access, as well as collective and individual use. All of these services can be integrated in an ideal MaaS platform. Another nice visual, I think, is very helpful to understand how a MaaS ecosystem looks like and how, in an ideal MaaS operation, the relationship of each stakeholder to the MaaS service, what they basically give and get from this operation. I will not go through in each of them, but I will mention, for example, transport operators. Transport operators basically provide their data into the system, but in exchange, they get expanded market share. They provide their services to the users of this MaaS service. When we look at authorities, well, authorities play a role in the MaaS ecosystem by regulating data standards, policy frameworks, cooperation, and ensuring fair competition, financing, and ensuring a certain level of service quality. What do authorities get in exchange? In exchange, they get more efficient and optimized use of transportation system, and long-term better distribution of subsidies, as well as increased tax and achieving sustainability goals of each area, each city. The last one I will mention here are the customers, the end users. They again give to the system their information, they share their information, but in exchange they get a hassle-free, individualized, and price-worthy solutions. I also want to actually mention universities here, because universities, research institutes play a crucial role in order to keep up with innovation, keep up with new technologies, and to actually evaluate and assess the impact of these technologies. Now, let's talk about different integration layers of MaaS. On the right side, you can actually see this visualization. On the right side of this image, you can see how it is basically more or less today. For each of these different services, the services that are provided by different operators, you need to go through different channels to do the payment, to do the book, and sometimes even to get the information of these services. On the right side, you see how it can be with the MaaS operator. These services are integrated into one platform where the user can access the information and also pay and book for these services. We have overall 5 levels, starting from level 0. It is basically no integration at all. You get the information and also payment possibilities from different channels of each transportation provider. On the first level, you have information integration, which may or may not include information of costs and route. And it is also here, the MaaS operator is also not responsible of the quality of service, but you, the user, here the added value for the user is that he or she can get into to access this platform and access the information of different transportation services. The next level is integration of bookings and payments. Here we basically introduce the service of search, book, and pay. The user can here, via a single channel, access different transportation services and also can search for the optimal route and do the payment, book and do the payment and actually get on board. However, in level 2 integration, usually not all the transportation services are included. In the next level is how we call integration of the services offered. Here, not only the needs of individuals, but also the individuals of families, etc., are taken into account. Here we also see both individual trips and subscriptions and passes can be booked. Level 3 is an important step because here actually we can start talking about a real alternative to car. Here all the services are included and the user can pick either subscriptions or book their trips individually. Also on the level 3 integration, the pricing scheme from the MaaS operators are flexible, whereas on level 2, usually the MaaS operator gets a commission from each trips that are booked. But in level 3, these are more flexible depending on the needs and the conditions of the traffic. The last level is where we include social objectives. Here, the social, public, and environmental policy goals of the public governance are included in MaaS. And here, where we can talk about influencing the users in order to achieve the overall sustainability goals of cities. Next, I want to give you 4 examples of the existing MaaS that are in operation already. There are more examples that we can talk about, but I picked these basically because they include relatively large number of services. For example, the first one, Reach Now, is operating in more than 40 cities in Germany. And on the right side, you can see the services, the transportation services that are included in these systems. However, these are generally differing from city to city. You don't see the exact same services included in all 40 cities in Germany. The next one is Yelby. It's operating in Berlin. It is rather a local operation, but it is also in use. The next 2, I picked them basically because they include local needs of the areas. You can see, for example, for Nugo in Italy, including ferries. You can see Open Move, which is including an Alpine Pass, and so on. However, overall, we can see that all of them are operating in level 2 integration. And in nearly all MaaS examples who are already in implementation, they have level 2 implementations, integration. We have some MaaS services who are in level 3, however, these are not completely rolled out yet. Now I want to talk through a scenario because I think putting these things into a storyline helps to understand the concepts. This is why I created this scenario. Naz, a student who wants to go to school in the morning. What does she do? She goes to her phone, she goes to a MaaS app, and she puts her home address and school, so she checks the availability, the potential journeys that she can take. The app provides her different potential trips that she can take to go to her school. She views them. She selects one where she first needs to take an e-scooter in order to reach the subway station. And from subway station, to go to her school, she would take a bus. She picks this journey because probably this is the fastest, and she moves on with the payment. The payment is done for all of these different modes through one channel, and after she pays, she gets on board. So here, different than what is happening today in most cases, she doesn't need to go to different apps for checking the availability of services or information or for payment. She can do all these things on one service, but also we see a strong collaboration and information exchange between different service providers in order to understand that, for example, the transfer time, or if an e-scooter is available on her street, and etc. Okay, we can have different MaaS services, including different types of transportation and so on, but overall we want to see, with MaaS operation, we want to encourage public transport and as well as active modes of transport, such as cycling and etc. MaaS needs to be user-oriented, ensuring social inclusion, addressing different types of users. It needs to take local needs into account. It needs to be impartial and ensure fair competition, and to create trust between different stakeholders in the MaaS ecosystem. Collaboration of private and public is also crucial in MaaS in order to provide a certain level of quality of service. And in the long run, it is important to promote innovation in order to keep up with changing trends in the cities. Last slide on MaaS introduction is the gaps and limits. Well, currently, most of these MaaS services that are operating are focusing on local communities, so we often see missing interoperability. In often cases, we also see, well, it is nearly in all examples that we talked about, private vehicles are excluded from the solution, so private vehicles are not really seen as a part of the solution, and therefore, it lacks the potential of being an actual alternative to private car ownership. The last point I want to talk is that MaaS focuses on individual interest, not the community interest. This is, I think, an important point to finish this introduction, which we will talk about this more on how TM 2.0 and MaaS can complement each other. Okay, do you have any questions so far about the concept? Or do you have any ideas regarding the opportunities for deployment in Turkey? Do you have already any initiatives regarding MaaS? Any activities that are ongoing? Or the obstacles? If not, if there are no initiatives, what are the obstacles, you think? I have heard from some already that data sharing between even, not just private and public, but between different stakeholders are challenging sometimes. Do you have an idea, for example, why and how we can deal with this challenge? You can also write, for the ones who are following us on Zoom, you can also write it on the chat function. There, I can't see it, so maybe you can.
So can I add something, an interesting point? So at ERTICO, we ran a survey for the past year and a half, and we asked 150 cities, well, the target is 300, but we just finished phase 1 of the city moonshot survey, we call it. And one of the questions that we were asking cities around the world is, do you have MaaS in your city? What is MaaS for you? And so on and so forth. So what we realized with this city moonshot, one of the results, was that the definition is not common. So many cities have a different idea of MaaS, and many cities think or perceive MaaS as just multimodality, the use of many modes. But it's more than that. So if you saw the definition that Itır was pointing at in the beginning, it was not only the multimodality and access to different modes and different combinations of modes, but also the fact that you can book and pay through a single channel. And that is important to know. So in the question, for example, what are the opportunities for deployments in Turkey? Maybe you have this multimodality, this access to different modes, but do you have single access points for paying and booking and planning and so on and so forth? Do you have providers in Turkey already that provide you with these itineraries, these options of how to combine these, the modes so that you can go easily from A to B? That is the question. Or do you see this as a good opportunity for Turkey? Yeah.
Yes, there are companies in Turkey, like e-scooter companies or companies that you can rent vehicles. But I don't think that they are collaborating each other. On the other hand, public authorities try to manage the traffic, but I don't think we have something like MaaS Alliance or just Turkey. So we don't have that kind of vision or a head company or head group for that. So everybody is just playing something for themselves. That's the picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you have an idea why is it like this? And can you see soon a potential for collaboration or?
Yeah, maybe on the public authority side, but for the private companies, for example, the e-scooter companies, I think they just following the trends. I don't think they are keen on the optimizing the traffic. Yes, they are doing something good, but they don't know the whole transportation concept. So they are just trying to get some profit. Yeah, I understand that. that they are private companies, but we don't have something that's getting all the people together, so we don't get something from that. Yeah, everybody's trying to do something anywhere.
Yeah, you don't have the provider that puts the different modes together to optimize your preferences. For example, I don't know, somebody who doesn't want really to take the bus because they're afraid of the corona and so on and so forth, and they want to use micromobility and the private taxi. You don't have this combination of modes. You only have micromobility, and that is the provider. You only have, I don't know, taxis, and that is the provider, or public transport, and that's it. And indeed, MaaS is, and the entire concept is the combination that is best for you and your preferences as a consumer, indeed. And I think, SWARCO, you have the My City application in Italy.
Yes.
Which does that, I think.
Well, I'm not really aware of the MaaS, but we include. We're aiming also. We are already including cyclists and other micromobility options into our management platform. But yes, overall, it is challenging to create a platform between these stakeholders to provide transparent information and inform them and make them accept the fact that in the long run this would benefit for us all. But yes, it's true.
But in many cities in Europe, public authorities are behind MaaS. So they start by having an integrated ticket for all the modes, the same ticket that you can use in a bus, in a tram, in a train, and so on and so forth. But of course, then it's kind of a monopoly of the public sector. You don't allow the private sector to enter into the MaaS game, and that is also wrong, because it should be open to public and private. So in the Netherlands, for example, there are cities that have a ticket that you can use in the train and the tram, and then if you're outside peak hours and it's only a matter of 3 people that are going to use the itinerary from A to B, they provide you with a taxi that cooperates with the entire system and comes and picks up the 3 people. Because having a bus picking up the 3 people waiting on the bus stop, it's kind of it doesn't work. So that is the concept behind MaaS, and that's how it benefits the entire system of mobility. But Esma, you wanted also to make a comment.
You asked that, is there an opportunity for Turkey for deploying MaaS? Yes, we were actually working for the last 2 years discussing how we can deploy such a MaaS platform for Turkey so that different cities, different municipalities can join and serve their citizens the best of their public transport infrastructure, which is interconnected with different cities. And this is an R&D project by our minister, by the Minister of Transport, Transport and Infrastructure, and we are planning to create a call for creating a MaaS platform where different services, public transport services, can be paid by a single payment card, which is called Türkiye card, which runs on top of such a MaaS platform.
Perfect.
Yes, we have seen the gap, which is a necessity for different cities, which will be interconnected with not only with the local public transport, it is also connected with the intercities, like trains from Istanbul to Ankara as well. So the Türkiye card will be the single payment system, which will allow people to make their travels easier in an intermodal way.
That's fantastic. And you are allowing also the private sector to come in and be a partner.
Created such a R&D project which will be developed by the private companies. We, as the ministry or the public agencies, are not the monopoly of this platform. We encourage those private agencies to create such a platform, such an expandable, let's say, desirable, attractive platform, which can be, let's say, rival platform for different stakeholders. But we suggest the idea.
Fantastic. Yes. Yes, perfect. Any other contributions or questions or comments?
Türkçe de söyleyebilirsiniz arkadaşlar. Bak senin tercüme ediyorsun.
Oh, there is one here on the chat box. What if we put different active services from different service providers in a MaaS environment and give the user the option to choose which service provider to pick? Yes, absolutely. That's the idea. That's the
That's the
idea.
whole idea.
Yeah.
And that is also maybe, now it's important to mention, when we are talking about the optimal journey, we are not always talking about the fastest journey. The optimal journey can also be defined by the user. It can be the most environmental journey. It can be the journey with sorry?
Most effective one.
Exactly, the cheapest journey, or it can be the one where the user don't want to change transport. So I gave you an example of how it could look like, but it can have different scenarios. So yes, that is an option.
Any more comments?
It says Turkey doesn't have its architecture, therefore standards are not clear yet. That is clear, but that's what we are currently working on as the ministry. As soon as we identify the standards to be applied in ITS projects, then the interconnection with different platforms and systems will be more interoperable.
Indeed. Yeah.
There's another question, I think, on the top about the Copenhagen, but that was I think about two.
Yok bir tane soru vardı da görün. Aferin aşağı.
Down there, how is it possible to, yeah.
Okay.
For you, Johanna.
Yes. So I was saying that Copenhagen is prioritizing on bicycles. So they have more green waves, green lights, open for the bicycles and not for the cars. And that is what they do consciously. So, yeah, in both directions of traffic lights for cyclists, I guess that's easy. It depends on what you're prioritizing or not, if I understand the question correctly. Do I? Do I understand the question correctly? In both directions of traffic lights for cyclists.
In both directions at the same time? Because usually I think what happens is that when you have a flow from A to B, where the people, for example, in the morning goes from A to B to work, you would do the prioritizing for this road because you have a flow.
Yeah.
Applying at the same time, yes, I think from the technical point of view, there would be not a big problem. But this really depends on the specific road section.
No, but yeah, but when you have a bicycle lane, it's when you have a green wave, it's both sides. If I understand the question correctly, it goes green for both sides. What is important is that the people who live in Copenhagen or who work in the center, they see the delay and they understand the prioritization because also it's the strategy of the city, and they opt for the bicycle because they know that if they take their car, they're going to be delayed. So it's faster by bike. Of course, this promoting active mobility is, again, there's an issue there with the groups of users that are not able to bike because of health problems and so on and so forth. So then, again, this is something that should be solved. But of course, it's a conscious strategy of the city to promote active mobility and bicycles. Have we answered to all questions? Yes,
so, yeah.
I think so. Okay, so let us go further to this.
Those are all questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, those are all.
We're not having a break. So, question for you. So, according to you, what are the benefits of looking into these concepts together? The TM 2.0 that we talked about before, and mobility as a service. So, of course, you can choose more than one in the Slido. So, a better All of the above, okay. Better integrated mobility system offers an opportunity for mobility providers to cooperate, is key to more efficient mobility. And 3 people have answered all of the above. And we are going to talk about it, of course. But almost everyone sees all of the above. And I think also choosing another question, another answer, offers an opportunity for mobility providers to cooperate, a better integrated mobility system, and more efficient mobility. That's great. Yes, indeed, it is all of the above. And again, it depends on the region or the city that is deploying the combination of the 2 concepts together on what they want to focus more. But it is indeed key to more efficient mobility. It is providing for a better integrated mobility system and offers an opportunity for mobility providers to cooperate, and we're going to focus on that. So, how are they connected? And you saw this when we were discussing about the Traffic Management 2.0 and the principles of cooperation or collaboration and trust and co-petition among the public and the private sector, and how this loop of information goes in the traffic management value chain, so that the stakeholders of road traffic management understand what is the real operational picture. What is happening on the road with the exchange of data. But of course, it's not only cars. We have been saying this all day. It's also micromobility, it's pedestrians, it's more than one or only vehicles and 3 stakeholders. And the issue of micromobility is not only their movement in the road network, but also their use of space. So we call it curbside management, or sidewalk management, which is where they're parked, or they're not neatly parked like this. They're usually thrown in different corners of the city, and that is indeed a problem. So there's this competition of space, where to park micromobility, where to unload a lorry, cargo, and so on and so forth. So this all adds into this need of managing mobility in a more holistic way and understanding where these vehicles are parked or moving, and how to deal with the safety and the efficiency of it. And this is also almost the same story with Naz, was the girl that was going to school, and 17-year-old, where we don't live in a mobility ecosystem where you use only 2 modes. You use all the modes, and I also put drones there because they're more and more getting into the picture, especially functioning as cargo in the mobility of goods. And some people, they want to go from A to B, they choose different modes and different itineraries. You can walk, you can take the bus and the train, and so on and so forth. And that is important for the mobility orchestrator or the mobility manager to understand what is happening in the mobility network. And we call this common operational picture, on how to understand and have all this data and understand which mode is congested and where you should be directing traffic. And that is where you need the authorities that are managing the mobility to have this channel of communication with the MaaS providers. Because if all the MaaS providers give to their customers the same option, like take the bus 19 and then the taxi and then the scooter, everyone's going to go for that. So you need an authority or a level where you're going to say, okay, 20% of the users are going to use that combination, and 10% that combination, and 30% that combination of modes to go from A to B, so that the entire system is not congested and not everyone uses the same route because they're faster. Because as we were saying before, fast is not always the best option. There are other factors that should be taken into account, like geofencing or environmental targets set by the public authorities. So that is what is happening when you put the two concepts together. And I put the MaaS Alliance there because it is indeed another ERTICO innovation platform where under it you have all the MaaS providers, public authorities, private sector, and research centers and so on, cooperating on how to define MaaS and make it interoperable and set the standards for everyone. So you have the principles, the same principles that you use for the TM 2.0 on collaboration and trust among all the stakeholders and co-opetition into this more holistic view of mobility now, mobility network management, where you have the MaaS operators cooperating and exchanging data with the traffic management operator, road operator, traffic service provider. So the upper part of this circle, which is traffic road management, basically, going into mobility integration platform, mobility operator, travel service provider. So you actually have this loop of information in the entire chain, and you understand what is happening in your mobility network and which mode is congested and which combination of modes is the best for the situation at that specific time in the network itself. So that is the idea. That is what we are discussing now at the European level and what ERTICO is looking into more and more with its partners on how to go for this holistic mobility network management. And that is why we speak to all the modes, and we speak to organizations that are representing the waterways, the train organizations. We also have them in the ERTICO partnership, and how to make sure that the users are, how to achieve this win-win-win. What is best for you as a user and your preference? What is best for the system? Because we should stop thinking only about what is best for us, but also see what is best for the system to function. Again, looking ahead and seeing that automation is coming, and we should find a way to satisfy all interests and needs. So that is, again, the girl that goes to school.
Yes.
And that's your story.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember this scenario. Here I want to show how TM 2.0 can add to this scenario. We, as we mentioned, we have a loop of information. So the information is shared constantly with the MaaS system, where, for example, in this case, the information of the current situation of the road network is sent to the MaaS service, so the trips that are viewed to the user are here optimized, and the user can actually make decisions based on real-time information. The information is not only limited in the beginning, but it also continues until the end. And while even the user is on the way, she would receive continuous information in order to adjust herself. Another scenario to give a specific example. Now we have Oktay 48 prepares to leave work and go home. He goes to the app again, and now these concepts are together. So we have information being fed into the system. And let's take an example. He's at the office, and an accident happened an hour ago, and the road that is connecting his office and his home, a part of the road is now congested. So this information is shared to the app. He continues, he views possible optimal routes that he can take. But the problem is that he took his car to the office. So he's still going, and then he sees the car is included in the service, and he sees if he would drive back because of the accident, it would take really long time. So now he views all the trips that are available, and he decides to leave his car at his office and then take the subway first. But unfortunately, until his home, he doesn't really have many public transportation options. So in this case, he uses a car sharing app. He takes the subway and then takes the car sharing app, and he finds this as the most optimal journey for himself. He selects journey. He goes to the payment section where he does the payment through only one app again, as we talked, and he gets on board. This is basically an example how it would be in a storyline. and the information is fed along the way in case, I don't know, and some new incident would happen, he would still receive the information to adjust his behavior in the optimal way. Lastly, here we can maybe conclude in a way that the traffic management evolves through MaaS, meaning that MaaS paves the way towards a collaborative, interactive mobility management from a traditional management. But on the other side, MaaS can be used, well, MaaS includes also, through traffic management, car as a part of the solution, so offers an actual alternative to only owning a private car, and also allows cities to influence the behavior of the passengers and therefore access their sustainability goals or other policy goals. There is this project called My Corridor, which is, I think, a nice example to see how these concepts can actually work together. There's a short video about this. Can we go to the link? Oh, the mic was off, actually, but...
No, it is on.
It is on, okay, sorry.
MaaS is an attempt to bring together the different mobility services and offers in order to increase the personalization, flexibility and freedom for travelers. Within the context of the My Corridor project, we are trying to bring that one step forward.
Main page of the application, the user can choose between 3 different products, which are Green Packs, MaaS Packs and MaaS on the Go. From here, the user can click on the MaaS on the Go option, where he can enter the origin and the destination for the trip he wants to make, as well as the trip start time and date. The user can also set the preferred transportation modes. As long as everything has been set up, the user can push the Search Solutions button in order to find the available trips. A few moments later, all the available trips will show up on the screen. The user can select one of the available trips and see all the different steps for the trip. For each step, the user can view all the available services if there are any and select the ones that he wants to use. Then he can proceed with the payment. After the successful purchase of the services, the user can go to his trip history, where he can find the trip that he has just created. He can select that trip and view the mobility token for that trip. The My Corridor mobile application is available on both Android and iOS devices. Moreover, the application is available in 6 different languages: English, German, Dutch, Czech, Italian and Greek. Finally, it should be noted that cross-border trips are also supported.
For transport operators, MaaS has the potential to increase sales and achieve economies of scale.
The first round of pilot testing took place in spring 2019 with 25 participants in Salzburg. The second pilot round is focused on real-world testing. In Salzburg, we have recruited some 60 participants.
Our pilot proved that despite MaaS being a complex concept with several barriers, it is a viable solution for the future of mobility.
Από τις δοκιμές διαπιστώσαμε πως η εφαρμογή My Corridor συνεισφέρει σημαντικά στη φιλοσοφία του Mobility as a Service και συνδυάζει πολλαπλά μέσα μεταφοράς βάσει των αναγκών των χρηστών.
suggested an event in the Johan Cruyff Arena, I used the My Corridor app to get there. It's a multimodal planner which I can use to compare public transport against driving my own car. And I use the navigation from the app to find a parking spot and navigate towards the Johan Cruyff Arena. It was an easy experience and I will use it more often in the future.
Η μεγαλύτερη πρόκληση είναι να συγκεντρωθούμε όσο δυνατόν περισσότερες υπηρεσίες στο My Corridor, ώστε να καλύπτονται οι ανάγκες όλων των χρηστών.
MaaS will be one of the key innovations to shape the mobility of the future in the years to come.
I just wanted to point to a couple of points here. When you have one MaaS provider, the MaaS provider can only see what is happening within their system, how many people are using the app and where they're going. And that's one. And second is that when you as a user, you're planning from your trip from A to B, and it shows available in green, and then suddenly something happens, like we mentioned before, like Itır was mentioning, and things change. You need this understanding of the real-time information coming from multiple stakeholders. And so does your provider, because your provider should have access to what is happening in the network in order to adjust your itinerary on the go and provide you at all times with the best option. So maybe you were giving an itinerary with, I don't know, from A to B, using the bus, the train, and so on, and suddenly there's an issue with the train, there's an accident, and so on, and the access to real-time information that is coming from the public authority, the train providers, the other MaaS operators should be available to everyone so that they can provide the best service for you. That is what this combination of MaaS and traffic management does for the mobility network management. That is what we are talking about, this holistic approach. So that is the essence of putting the two concepts together. And My Corridor did a very good job on that. And it is a topic or a concept that is coming up for funding under the Horizon Europe program, where the EU is trying to enhance research and deployment and so on and so forth. So let's.
Can I have one more slide about the challenges?
Yes.
Yeah, so overall, if you would list the challenges, the most common challenges to make this cooperation, we can talk about barriers of integration, of payments, and so on, as well as market access. We can talk about developing of trust for collaboration, which sometimes hinders public-private partnership, but also scalability, interoperability, and so on. Overall, we know that there are still undefined principles of data sharing and access, which is also crucial for developing trust among different stakeholders. And in general, we have lack of knowledge and understanding among all the partners of this ecosystem. That's all, basically.
And let's go to the Q&A. So how easy is it to collect mobility data in Turkey? And what do you do about bicycles? 2 questions for you. Yeah.
I believe collecting of data is not done currently in a mass scale, but I don't think it will be an issue if we decide to implement this project. My biggest concern is that when we think about a mass system, there will be a profit that comes out of this process. How does the EU perceive the fact that there might be some decentralized solution to the mass case, like an open API could be fed off
the system, and the system could be open source. In fact, is that in the perspective of the EU? Is there any work towards that goal?
Well, the EU generally doesn't interfere on how to build the business model. What the EU wants to do, and the Commission, is to make sure that this is a public-private partnership and different regions or cities have a different kind of combination or percentages of involvement. And what is important for the EU is to be fair to all the stakeholders participating. Now, if there's profit only for the private companies, if it's for the benefit of society, this is all depending on the business model, and the best business model and the most successful one is the one that provides a win-win for all. And that is constantly the discussion. So the discussion now in the EU is how to deal with the ticketing of public transport that have the tickets that have to be provided by a mass provider on a higher price than they are provided by the public transport operators. And that is making it unfair because the private mass provider needs to have a margin of profit, so that it doesn't incentivize anyone basically to buy tickets from there for public transport, and it doesn't help this integration. So there's this entire discussion, and I don't know if there's I'm hoping that the solution is going to be found, but there is still this issue with the public transport tickets. I don't know how you're thinking about it, Esma, with the public transport.
I totally agree with you. Actually, as I told you, MaaS is on our agenda for the last 2 years, and we are thinking about creating an R&D project to see the pros and cons, how it evolves, how is the attitude and the interaction between the municipalities and the citizens and the service providers. We have to see all those, and as you mentioned, there should be some sort of incentives which will make the MaaS platform attractive for both the citizens, for the municipality, for the end users. That's the whole idea, and we have to find a balance between all those different sorts of topics.
Indeed. Yeah. And what about bicycles? How are you planning to integrate or enhance the use of bicycles in Turkey and as part of MaaS, because our traffic management, that's the topic of the training. But bicycles, there is a discussion, is it ITS or not? It is ITS for us in ERTICO because of the connected devices, even your mobiles, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I can answer this question
Sure.
as well. Actually, we as Turkey, as the Minister of Transport, see the bicycles and bicycling as an important sort of transport system. And for this reason, in our latest strategy document, we have asked the municipalities to expand their bicycle roads so that our urban transport infrastructure is well equipped for the cyclists. And in order to count the let's say travels which is carried out via bicycles, there are some counting systems which is specifically designed for counting the bicycles, and the municipalities were surprised to see there's a huge potential for the cyclists in their cities, which is a very efficient form to reduce the traffic, to reduce the congestion, and it is part of our mobility system. It's part of our ITS mobility perspective.
Yes.
Maybe I want to ask another question regarding bicycles. From the technical point of view, I think it's great, but are there also any projects regarding the culture, how we approach the bikes? Because I can imagine when you implement bike lanes, but drivers don't really know what that means, or they don't know the punishment if they would cross, they would just park on it, or just drive through.
There's a mindset shift needed, I think, not just in Turkey, it's again in all countries. But we, as Turkey, the public authorities are insisting on the use of bicycles, and every year we have been actively promoting the European Mobility Week, and in this European Mobility Week there has been lots of cycling tours in different cities in Turkey, and we encourage all the municipalities in Turkey to take advantage of cycling in their cities, in their urban areas.
It's one of the yeah, if I can say that, one of the benefits of Corona was this mind shift that you're referring to.
Mindset shift.
Yeah, exactly. The mindset shift. It happened in many cities around Europe, where more and more cities devoted more lanes to bicycle use. And now that Corona is passing or has passed, they are actually not going back to the car lanes. So one of these cities is Brussels. And there's a lot of, so you always have this traditional bicycle-focused countries like the Netherlands and Denmark, and now it's becoming more and more a norm. Exactly. Basically, what we wanted to conclude with, but we also have a couple of Slido questions more, is that when we are talking about the mobility network management, is basically capacity management, is managing the capacity in the different modes, the capacity on the road for the cars, the capacity on the bicycle lanes or bus lanes for the users. And it is something that was happening slowly, but with the Corona, it really it was really accelerated, because it became important to know how many people are in the bus, how many bicycles, and how many users in the different lanes. So let us go to the Slido questions. How developed is the cooperation of the mobility stakeholders in your country? And when we're saying mobility stakeholders, we are talking about traffic management centers, train operators, bus operators, and so on. Oh, okay. Non-existent 50%, beginning.
Advanced.
And advanced. Beginning. Well, the beginning and the non-existent are quite close. I think it's the optimists and the pessimists in the room. Because it is this cooperation, this dialogue that should be happening for the mobility system to work in this integrated and holistic way. And these concepts more and more push us towards this dialogue and this understanding. So at the end, it's not only technology. Technology is always one of the solutions. It's not the one and only solution. It's also mindset. It's also the ability to understand and align on the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is really the flowing of traffic on different modes, and instead of focusing on one only. I think we have another one. Yes. What are, in your opinion, the key aspects that TM 2.0 and MaaS should focus on to improve mobility in Turkey? And you can choose stakeholder dialogue, open data, holistic approach towards mobility, all of the above. And let me tell you, open data doesn't necessarily mean free data. That is another discussion taking place in Europe for a long time. So open data means accessible, and it can be accessible through contacts and business agreements and so on. It doesn't necessarily mean free, because as we know, data is the product of service providers as well, and they charge for their work on it. So 71% says all of the above, stakeholder dialogue 12%, holistic approach towards mobility. Indeed, they are all key aspects in improving mobility in Turkey and in every country. It goes without saying. 78%. Great. It means we are doing a good job, or you knew it already. Yes. So, this is the end of our training, but not the end for you, our dear friends. So we have some questions. We don't call it exam, it's the learnings from the day of the 2 trainings that you received. And we will be providing you with a one-pager and some pens together. Yeah. The pens are in the box, in case you didn't bring any and you're fully digitized, so that we have a basis upon which to provide you with the certificates tomorrow. Thank you, Itır. Okay, so we're coming. We're coming.
Before leaving the room, we should have a picture.
Oh, we're not leaving the room. Yeah. You have to give it back to us. Please stay.